The one word that's been in everyone's mouths this year is APEC. Everyone's concerned about this lobby in the United States, their influence over American politicians, concerned whether their representatives are bought and paid for. A lot of people have been saying Palestine is going to be the litmus test going forward, and I think that what it has realized itself into on the ground is these groups like Track APAC giving information to voters about whether their representatives are being paid by the pros or a lobby. And we're hearing people say the same thing over and over again. I will not vote for a candidate who has taken $1 from APAC. And that's why I think this story is so important. Guys, I'm here with Matthew Eady. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
He's done a great story exposing some new tactics APAC has begun employing that involve hidden donations, and it's quite a piece. And so I thought we'd talk to Matthew about what he found. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Happy to talk about it. Yeah, like you said, I'm Matthew Eady. I'm a reporter for a local news outlet in Evanston, Illinois. If you don't know Evanston, it's a suburban city just north of Chicago. It's home to Northwestern University, which is, the main reason most people know about it. I cover local news. I also cover local politics, and so I'm covering the ninth congressional district Democratic primary. It involves Representative Jan Schakowsky, a longtime progressive member of Congress who's retiring at the end of her term. And so there's, over a dozen, actually it's almost over up to 20 candidates running for the Democratic primary in the race. A couple of big names in progressive circles, in local political circles. Evanston Mayor Daniel Biss, who I cover most closely. He ran for governor of Illinois a couple of years ago unsuccessfully. He's a former state representative and state senator. Kat Abu-Ghazaleh, who's a 26-year-old progressive content creator. A lot of people on social media know her for her videos over the
We
past
know
couple
her,
of
yeah.
years. And then State Senator Laura Fine is a state senator here in Illinois, representing most of the North Shore suburbs. There's a couple other another state senator, another state representative, and then a bunch of other candidates running for the race. But those three are polling atop the field and arguably are the front runners for the primary, which is in March. And so I've been covering the race for the past couple of months, and will continue to be through the primary in March.
So, I mean, I was scrolling X and I saw your post or your publication talking about these. First of all, you reported on these hidden donations that were unmarked in the FEC filings, I believe. Could you explain what you were talking about and how you happened across this?
Yeah, I think this is a really important because a lot of people I've noticed don't understand how this works at all, aren't actually reading the story, and don't seem to be interested in finding out how this entire thing works. So I think it's good to give some context into how I came across all of this. For people who don't know and don't care about political financial contributions, every 3 months, candidates are required to disclose who's donating to them, and this happens on the 15th of March, of July, of October, and then of January. And what happens is they disclose their entire contribution lists and they disclose their expenditures. And so it gives us a good sense of where things stand every 3 months in the race. Who's giving money, who's spending money, where are they spending it, where are they getting it from. So on October 15th, the July, August, and September contributions for not just federal elections, but also state elections are disclosed on the FEC's website. Well, the FEC's website is for the federal elections. And so for the ninth congressional district, I was looking through them. And what I noticed was specifically for State Senator Laura Fine, who, like I said, is a state senator in Illinois representing the North Shore it's actually also the ninth district. And what I noticed in her contributions was there was a significant uptick in out-of-state donations. She received like less than 5% of her previous quarter donations from out of state, and in the more recent contribution disclosure, it was nearly half of her contributions came from out of
Wow.
state, which just raised questions for me like, okay, this is interesting. What changed? She hasn't seemed to be increasing much in any other sense. I mean, she didn't raise a ton more money generally. Her contributions in state didn't skyrocket the same amount. And so I started looking one by one and noticing a trend in the list itself of these donations primarily being unearmarked donations. And what that means is people are familiar with Act Blue. I'm sure you're familiar with Act Blue, right?
Yep.
Very common contribution site. Every candidate in the Democratic Party pretty much uses Act Blue. You go on their website, there's a donation link. It's typically Act Blue. And when you donate through that site, the donation shows up as earmarked through Act Blue, which pretty much just means the money went from you to Act Blue to the candidate. All of these donations that I noticed for Senator Fine appear to be unearmarked donations, which would imply they were direct contributions. And I found it surprising that over $300,000 in contributions came directly from the donors to the candidate. And while some of these were in-state, it's not all out of state. There were some in-state ones as well, but they also had the same dates on them. They were Thursdays at the end of August and September. Every Thursday.
Only Thursdays?
Right. Every Thursday, it seemed like there was a huge drop, like tens of thousands of dollars in contributions coming on Thursdays. There were some stragglers, but an overwhelming majority of the unearmarked contributions came on Thursdays. And so it raised questions. I'm like, what's happening here? This seems odd. I haven't seen this before. And no other candidate had the same weird, unearmarked tens of thousands of dollars in contributions. I also was aware at this time of an email from AIPAC, like you said, that was what appeared to be soliciting donations for Haley Stevens, Angie Craig in Minnesota, Haley Stevens in Michigan, and Laura Fine, who's running obviously for Congress. This was posted a couple of weeks before on Twitter. It was a very blurry screenshot of an email. Kat Abou-Ghazaleh had posted about it. She says she was aware of the email as well, and it pretty much called both Kat and Daniel Biss dangerous detractors from AIPAC's message, and was fundraising against them for Laura Fine. And so I was aware of this email, and so what I did was I went pretty much one by one through all of the contributors, starting with the unearmarked contributors, to look at the donation histories of these people, to see who they've given to before. And virtually every single one of these unearmarked contributors had a long history of donating to candidates through AIPAC. And these, you can see contributor history on the FEC's website. If you've given more than $200 to a candidate for office, your name is there, your address is there, your occupation's there. And what's also there is how you gave the money. If you gave it through Act Blue, if you gave it through AIPAC, if you gave it through other lobbying groups, it shows up in there. And a lot of these candidates these donors had literally never given money to a candidate other than directly through AIPAC.
Wow.
And this is, I'm talking not just, Democratic AIPAC candidates, like, some of them are very open about it. They're on AIPAC's website. Haley Stevens is one of them. Richie Torres is another one of them. Mm-hmm. Wesley Bell was on every single donor list pretty much. He's one of AIPAC's top receivers. So what I found really interesting was it's not just Democrats, it's also a lot of Republican candidates as well. Ted Cruz was here, Brian Mast, Randy Fine, Tom Cotton. There were a ton of Republicans as well. And so I asked the campaign about this. They didn't answer my questions. I'd asked them a couple of weeks prior. They didn't answer my questions. So it seemed like they didn't want to address the AIPAC question directly. And then on Monday, I received two emails. The one that I had already previously been aware of, which was sent in mid-September, and then another one that was sent in late August. I believe it was August 21st, which coincidentally was the week before, or not even a week before. It was the Monday before all of the first big chunk of AIPAC donations started coming in. And this email was specifically naming Laura Fine and specifically naming Kat Abou-Ghazaleh. In the email, it called Kat a anti-American candidate, an anti-Israel candidate, and solicited donations for Laura Fine.
So let me just be clear on this. you discovered the APAC was fundraising for Laura Fine in this race,
Right.
but you couldn't find any APAC earmarked donations at all?
Yeah, there was not a single donation, and this is important, not a single donation in Laura Fine's contributor list from May through when she launched her campaign in early May through now was earmarked as being donated through APAC.
Hmm.
So not a single one. All of them were either Act Blue or individual contributors, meaning they wrote checks or donated somehow in which their names did not were not linked to any organization that they had donated through. And this is this last email in August that was, the first email rather in August that I have that was soliciting contributors to her campaign. It included links to a web page called Pro-Israel Network, which is using, a fairly popular donation platform called Democracy Engine, and it was fundraising for her campaign. You could donate thousands of dollars on this site. And what appears to be happening here is the way this is all set up is that APAC can solicit donations to her campaign. It can send out emails to its supporters, to its donors. The donors can click on the link. They can donate $1,000, $3,000, $7,000. And the donation appears to be an individual donation because this website is set up in such a way that APAC's never touching the money, so they can pretty much say, we had nothing to do with it. I don't know what you're talking about, unless you have the email that proves they knew exactly what they were sending.
I think the secret website is honestly astonishing. I was reading your post where you dropped some of the links to candidate pages, and the way they have them written is like a code. It's like scrambled. It's not like a typical web URL.
Right, right.
And so, they're making it hard, seemingly, to discover what other candidates, because you found a few links in the email, and some other people, I think, found a few others where they have candidate fundraising pages on there. And I also noticed a sign-in page on the Pro-Israel Network site. Can you tell me anything about this? Like, what's
Right.
happening? If the candidates are on the site, does that mean they're being supported by APAC and they're having money essentially secretly funneled through them by APAC?
Yeah, so I think this site, it appears to be operated by Democracy Engine, like I said. And the founder of Democracy Engine used to work for Act Blue, which is important to note. So he definitely knows kind of how this entire thing works. And I actually reached out to him, and he responded to me and explained how his company works. And he pretty much confirmed what I had suspected, that it is acting not as what the FEC considers a conduit, meaning it's touching the donations and the donations are going through the website, in which then it would have to be earmarked as having done so, but it's acting as a vendor. And so it's pretty much just taking the donations from the person, moving them to the candidate. It doesn't have to be disclosed. APAC doesn't have to be disclosed. Democracy Engine doesn't have to be disclosed. And like I said, it just shows up in the contribution list as if this person donated directly to the candidate. Of course, if they didn't have the website links, they wouldn't have been able to donate to the candidate. And so I think it raises some serious transparency questions about, are organizations now able to send out fundraising emails with links to donate to candidates saying pretty explicitly, like, donate here, and then none of this is ever disclosed to the public and nobody ever knows about this, which is what appears to be happening in this case. The links, like you said, yeah, they have codes at the end of them. It's like candidates.proisraelnetwork.org / and then a code, and that's what takes you to the candidate. But this website is not publicly available online. Like, if you search this just on Google, you're not going to find it. You need to have the URL to find this web page. And I don't know if APAC is operating this site. They haven't answered my questions. I've texted a representative from APAC twice. They've read the text both times, and they've not responded to me either time. The campaign has not answered questions about the site, and I can't seem to get anybody to address who's actually operating this site. So I don't know if it's APAC running the site or if it's simply being run through Democracy Engine. But at the very least, the site is soliciting, or the emails are soliciting donations with links to the site in which people can donate, and not have to disclose how they're doing so.
Do you think this breaks any election laws, or Is it they found a way to get around all of it?
Yeah, I don't think it. I don't think it's. I don't have any reason to think that there's any illegalities going on here, and I'm certainly not accusing the
Yeah.
campaign or anybody of breaking any laws. I don't believe so. And from my understanding of how this entire thing works, it seems to be a legal loophole. That there's a transparency loophole in the FEC, in the way the FEC considers websites like this, in which they can solicit donations or lobbying groups can solicit donations, have candidates donate through this website, and the way the website's set up is one in which they don't have to disclose, they being the lobbying group, that they had any involvement in this. Now, you could say, well, these people would have donated anyways. Like, well, who cares? Like, if somebody likes the candidate, they would have found a way to donate, and that's probably true. But they probably would have done so through Act Blue or another way, or maybe they do write a check directly to the candidate. But clearly, I think it's pretty clear to see that had these people not received, these individual donors not received this email from APAC soliciting donations, at least two emails, I'm quite confident there's probably more, then they probably wouldn't have clicked on those links and donated directly through the website. And so clearly there is a way around disclosure laws. And at the very least, like, my question is, why do it this way? Like, why not just put the candidate on your website? Because APEC has a donation portal on their website in which a lot of candidates, Republicans and Democrats, are listed on there. You can donate through that website directly, and then the donation shows up as being donated through APAC in the FEC lists, which is what we see and have seen for years. It's the way Track APAC tracks donations. It looks online and sees how many people through open secrets have donated, and it counts the money and it adds it up, and there's the total. I think it's clear people don't really necessarily even know what APAC does. It is a network of individual donors. I mean, they do have their own super PACs in which they donate directly to candidates, but it is also a network of individual donors, normal people across the country who receive emails and solicitations from the organization supporting individual candidates, and then they donate their own money. The point here is, though, usually that has to be disclosed because the organization is still saying, donate to this candidate. We like this candidate for these reasons, and their opponents are, bad for these reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that that should be transparent. At the very least, it's not transparent.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree with you in your analysis that without the emails, these donations wouldn't have been flooding in like this. I mean,
At least
you have the
like this.
dates
I mean,
on
like
the
I said, they might
emails.
have still happened, but not in this way.
Yeah. Well, I think that every Thursday having a flood of donations points to
Yeah,
their
I should explain
impact.
also how that works. So, from my understanding, how that actually works is the emails came on, I believe it was Mondays or Tuesdays. And my understanding of how this Democracy Engine site operates is it pretty much holds the donations until Thursday or Friday, and then it
Mm,
deposits them into the candidate's
okay.
account, which even furthers the point of these are obviously donations going through this website, which you can only access if you have the link sent by the APAC email.
Okay. Uh, could you give us like an analysis as to why APAC might be choosing to secretly fund pro-Israel candidates with this hidden website?
I mean, it's hard to say. Obviously, like I said, APAC hasn't answered my inquiries. The campaign hasn't addressed this directly. So I can't speak to why or why not the candidate isn't on the website. Clearly, the candidates, this is not just the example happening with the one candidate I'm referring to. There are probably dozens of these similar emails for other candidates. And I don't know what the reasoning is. What I can say is, as we've seen, like you talked about, a lot of people talking about APAC recently, and people have strong opinions on the organization and its message. And so, it's possible that candidates don't want to be tied to APAC. They don't want the track APAC photo at the end of their every Twitter post. It is impactful, I think, and a lot of campaigns don't want to have to deal with that. that's a potential reason for this. It could also just be APAC not wanting to have to disclose their own, you know, the ways that they're soliciting donations, or at the very least, obscuring how they're doing some of them. Or it could be a mix of those two things. What I'll say is I don't know if this is totally new. I don't know if they've been doing this. I don't know if they've been doing this in previous election cycles. What I do know is I've spoken to a couple of different people who have, worked for candidates that are, well funded by APAC and through APAC's donors. And I've also spoken to people who know this stuff pretty well, and they've said that they haven't really seen this before, at least not to this scale. But I've also seen people who have said, "Yeah, we knew this. This is how it's always operated," but nobody talked about it before.
Interesting. So, partially, what you just said there is that you think that this could be happening in other races right now. Do you think we should be looking into that? People should be
I think it
paying
definitely is
attention.
happening in other races. Yeah, I mean, I think even just from the emails that I obtained and I posted about, it's happening in at least two other races. And the website that I've referenced and that people have found additional links to, there are a ton of candidates on the website. I believe there's both Republican and Democratic candidates on this website. APAC is known for supporting both parties.
Hmm.
APAC still has a lot of candidates on their own website, in their own donation portal. You can go look it up right now, apac.com or org, I don't know what it is. And they have a donation portal right on there, and a lot of their endorsed candidates are listed on there, and you can donate right through the website, including some of the ones that are in these emails. But specifically for this candidate that I cover, Laura Fine, she's not on APAC's portal. She's not on their website. She has not talked about them. They have not talked about her. And that's why it made it so interesting for me, because this is an endorsement essentially. You're receiving fundraising emails, which make up a large portion of your contributions. And yet, you're not addressing this at all. APAC isn't talking about this. You're not talking about this. The question is why. Certainly, that's a question for pundits to answer. I know there's, I also posted the other day a poll that's circulating in progressive circles in a couple of Illinois races, but also two races in Pennsylvania, one in Michigan, and one in Minnesota. And it shows APAC's popularity as being pretty underwater among progressive Democrats. So, that's potentially a reason for them wanting to still support candidates, but do so quietly.
Yeah, I saw that poll. We'll put it up in post. And I wanted to ask. We're gonna wrap up soon, but because you mentioned this on your X post, but when you reached out to Laura Fine's campaign, you said that they told you they were aware that you have more about this. Is this true? Do you want to share that? Do you have anything to share?
Well, so what I said was that they were aware I have more questions, and the
Okay.
questions kind of surround this because they haven't been answered. I was at a candidate forum on Tuesday, and she participated in the forum. I wasn't able to talk to her because I was talking to a couple of other candidates before I was able to get to her, and she had left at that point. But two of her campaign staffers were still there, and I was able to grab them before they left and ask them, hey, like, can I get my questions answered? And they said that they were aware that my questions weren't being answered, and that they said that they were aware I have questions. And certainly I would love for them to be answered. I'd love for the campaign to answer them. I would love for APAC to answer the questions. It's not new for journalists not to get their questions answered, but
Hmm.
it would be nice to get some clarity on this, because I think a lot of people are wondering what's going on here. To what extent were you aware of this? Do you support or agree in the way APAC is framing your opponents? Both, it's really only named Kat Abou and Daniel Biss in these
Yeah.
emails.
Why do you think that they've plucked those two out of the field of 20?
I mean, they're the front runners. They're both raised the most money. They've both raised over $1.3 million. I think Kat Abu has raised $1.5 million. So they're pretty clearly the front runners in this race at this point. Um,
And they're
Daniel.
both anti-Israel?
So Kat Abu is of Palestinian descent. She's been pretty outspoken against against APAC before these emails came out, and even more so since. And Daniel Biss is actually of Israeli descent. His mother lived in Israel. His grandmother is a survivor of Auschwitz. And so he is, I talked to him actually on Tuesday after the forum, and he said that he would not be accepting AIPAC's money in the future. I'd be surprised if AIPAC was offering it. It called him a dangerous detractor, and said that he was working to undermine Israel. And so, if in the future he's elected to Congress and they offered his support, he said that he would not accept their money in the future. But he is accepting money from other organizations that have that are pro-Israel organizations. He's supported by J Street, and so I wouldn't say he's anti-Israel by any means, but he certainly isn't.
He's just not pro-Israel enough.
He's not accepting
according to
AIPAC
Abe.
support.
Yeah. So I want to say thank you, Matthew. I think
Sure.
this is great to have you on. Can you let people know how they can support your work?
I mean, yeah, just give me a follow. Sure, if you just look me up on Twitter, you can find me pretty easily. If you want to subscribe to Evanston Now, you'll get a lot of news about Evanston, but you'll also get news about this election. And so I would say keep up with it there. I cover it pretty extensively. A lot of stories a week about this race, and I'm sure there will be more as we get a lot closer to the primary, which is in March.
All right. Thank you, Matthew.
Appreciate it. Thank